And we're live! Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 ba, bum, ba, bum, bum, bum. Woo! It is time for the social startup competition of this year's 2020 Annual Impact Summit. Wow, I wish I could get a round of applause right now because it's kind of weird to be doing this to a blank screen, but that's not going to stop me from bringing up the hype, people. Woo! All right, here's how it's going to go. We have 6 fabulous presenters. We had nearly 100 applicants for this pitch competition, and all of them were so freaking good, and we wanted to give a slot for all of them, but unfortunately, we cannot. And Schmidt Futures, which is an amazing foundation. It's not actually a foundation. Technically, I think it's like an LLC. I'm not entirely sure what the corporate structure it is. I don't want to call it a foundation and then get sued, but it's a really nice philanthropic project, initiative, whatever. And they have generously given us $10,000 in funding to support the presenters here tonight. So I am going to stop talking and begin with our very first presenter. And I'm not even going to introduce her. I'm just going to bring her on. So can I get a thumbs up from Sarah that you're ready? I'm going to bring you on. Okay, let's wish her luck. Sarah, take it away.
Hey everyone, that was an amazing intro. Thank you so much for having me, and it's just been an amazing few days so far. Okay, so I'm here to introduce Emmy. I'm Sarah, I'm co-founder and CEO of Emmy. We are making the first digital watch that can learn and track your menstrual cycle. We have no app and there's no need to charge it. We're making this watch for women in low resource communities and also those who are looking for convenience and privacy. Okay, so there are significant problems with not tracking your cycle. There's been millions of unintended pregnancies each year and also school dropouts. So this really means that women cannot graduate and get jobs which can bring them out of the cycle of poverty. As well as this, diseases like endometriosis and diabetes can also go undetected. And we also just lack an ability to manage our emotional health. Over 300 million women do not have access to smartphones and mobile internet. So those 100 plus cycle tracker apps become completely useless. At the moment, there's cycle tracking necklaces on the market. They've actually sold over 2.5 million units, but they're clunky. They require users to do something every day. So we needed a solution that really worked. And this is where we come in. A watch is fashionable, it's desirable, and by integrating menstrual tracking functionalities into a digital watch, we can really make an affordable product that can transform women's lives. Okay, so how does it work? You press a button on day 1 of each period, and the watch will store this data, and it will start to learn your average cycle length, giving you notification icons when you're due on your next period, and also when you're in your most fertile window. These will get smarter over time. So on your watch, you can click through the screens and you can see key information. You can see your current cycle day, your average cycle length, any notification icon that comes up, and you can also see the start date of your last period. Okay, before I talk a bit more about the vision, I want to talk about the inspiration. I was working in this slum in Manila where I really saw the consequences that not tracking your cycle has. My grandma was a midwife, and she was one of the early pioneers in natural family planning and fertility education. She was one of 8. She was the only one who was allowed to continue her education, and she really inspired me to do something about this problem. And I know this is a really cute picture, but it kind of makes me question my upbringing slightly. Okay, so who else is in our space? We've got the apps and we've got the smartwatches and the necklaces I also just mentioned before. So why is our product better? We don't need charging. We've got this battery that lasts for 2 years. We also have all the memory inbuilt on the watch itself, also for 2 years of data storage. It's convenient. You just have to press this button on day 1 of every period. It's not like the necklaces where you have to do something every day. And also our price point. We're looking at a wholesale cost of 10 to 15 US. So what's the plan? We're taking a B2B approach. We're looking at a philanthropic channel and also a commercial channel. We are working with global health foundations and we'll be adding the Emmy watch to existing menstrual health and hygiene kits. So girls have everything they need to manage their menstrual cycles. We already have LOIs with 6 nonprofits and a UN agency, which together reach over 17 million women. And you can also see there's so much money in this space. On the commercial side, we've had initial meetings with a few big retailers who are interested in stocking the watch. So there's myself and my amazing co-founder, Tanya, who's a superstar engineer. And we've also got a lot of advisors, both in the public health space and the watch industry on board. Okay, so we want to be the wearable for women, but without the barriers. For version 2, we will be building in a data collection functionalities, which will enable us to advance female health research by collecting data and anonymizing it on cycle length. And I think Kathy was talking about this yesterday, of really getting data on underrepresented populations. With more money, we can invest in tooling for other unique designs, and we can also begin research into version 2 of our watch. Okay. Thank you so much, and I really look forward to any questions.
Sweet. So if we have any questions, we can bring them up. If we don't have questions, well, then I'm going to ask you questions. And that's much worse. So please, yeah. So chat, folks who are watching this, you should save help Sarah. My question is in terms of well, first of all, how exactly. How do you plan to scale? What's your marketing strategy? How do you intend to like really make a splash? Especially, I know that there are period trackers that have had mixed success, or they've gone up and they've like given a lot of hope, and then they've kind of failed, or they've not delivered on their promises. So,
yeah.
Methods.
Yeah, so we're looking at a market that hasn't really been tapped yet. All these women in emerging markets, and so those without the smartphones or who just don't want to use it. Data is also expensive in a lot of these areas, and using a period tracker app, you're not really going to choose that over WhatsApp. So that's why we're looking at these philanthropic foundations who serve millions of women. And like I said, the UN agency that we're talking to at the moment, them alone work with over 17.5 million women. In about 50 countries. So by getting into these existing programs on menstrual health and hygiene, on female education, and providing the watch at such a low cost, we can really easily scale and penetrate all these markets without any direct competition.
Okay, nice. We have a next question from Marielle. You mentioned data is stored locally on the watch. What happens if or when it gets broken or lost?
Yeah, so this is something we're going to be working on. For version 1, there's not much we can do. We have like a reset function, but if something goes like really wrong and the watch breaks, that's not really going to be an option. But for version 2, this is where we're looking at integrating a chip into the watch, or also using Bluetooth technology. Still having no charging and no individual app needed, but this will be able to store the data, and then you will be able to get your personal menstrual hygiene like health record.
Beautiful. So Marielle has a follow-up question, which is, we'd also love to learn about the customers, discovery/interviews, and pilots and testing.
Yeah, the interviews have been amazing. We're due to pilot in about 3 or 4 months. We've been really held up because of the virus and in manufacturing, but yeah, the interviews have been amazing. The concept of having a watch is because watches are becoming a bit more common in a lot of markets, because China is like producing a lot of these cheaper copycats. Actually, they're becoming like a super hot product. So the people that we've shown the watch to and the user interviews that we've done, it's just this like pure excitement at having this like cool watch, and then also just being able to look down and see exactly where you are in your cycle. So yeah, it's been really exciting.
Fantastic. We have another question here, which is, how is providing smartwatches to women in rural developing country settings sustainable?
In terms of what aspect, I guess
so this person might be meaning in terms of like where are the materials being sourced? How is there no like cradle to grave type of, like, are these just going to wind up like being disposed or like ignored, or et cetera?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the main point that it's sustainable in the sense that we're making it for the low resource communities, so no charging or no connectivity to an app. And then also on that point of I worked in the philanthropic sector and I saw big corporates giving out products for free and really good intention, but not really doing much. So this is why we're really integrating it into existing programs. And there'll also be a bunch of like incentive-based things to come back and to come to the education, the follow-up education programs about your cycle. We want to be offering products, whether that's female health products or other ways in which we can incentivize women to keep using the watch.
Okay, I have a fantastic question here from Nimra. How will you counter taboos while marketing in low and middle income countries? For example, in Pakistan, even mentioning periods publicly or buying pads is looked down upon. How would a visible watch be received in such communities?
Yeah, it's a big question. This is why we're using a very similar design to the digital watches that are already on the market to start with. So actually it will look pretty discreet. If you look at the watch as well, it just looks like a normal digital watch. It's only if you click through to the other screens that something comes up about your period. But as well as this is going to be a huge marketing campaign for us. This is where we're working with, this is why we're also working with the big foundations who are already looking at kind of getting rid of some of those taboos. So yeah, it's a long-term thing, changing behaviors like that.
Fabulous. Last question for me is, what would you use the funding for?
We would use this funding for starting to research on version 2 of our watch, so the data-enabled watch, and we would also put some of the costs into creating tooling so we can do a better pilot and reach more women.
Okay, fabulous, fabulous.
Thank
you so much, Sarah. A virtual round of applause from all of our folks watching and asking questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to remove you from the chat and bring on Lucas. Lucas, take it away.
Hey guys, thank you so much. It's a privilege and honor to be here. So I'm Lucas, I'm a rising sophomore at Harvard, and I founded Arevna. Our mission is to, of course, help student innovators translate their ideas into impact. So what that means is we're trying to bring in all of these ideas, all of these people around the world. As you can see here, we're pretty global, we're trying to be very inclusive. And something interesting is this Airtable map actually just comes from one single team, where we have over 30 different projects, 7 different initiatives, and of course, a lot of teams to help support everything. So what we're trying to do is provide a wholesome and inclusive environment for all the students who have been displaced, especially over the summer and going into fall, a place to innovate, a place to bring their ideas into reality. So the way we do this is, one, we're providing a structure. Of course, we're on Slack, we're on Zoom, we're in Discord. We have all of these accelerators that we're a part of that we can now be another clearinghouse for all of these tools so that these students can have access to what was previously proprietary, what was previously stuck inside, these ivory towers at our universities, and instead really open it up to literally anybody. For example, one of our initiatives, the coronavirus visualization community, I'll get to that in a second, is open to literally anybody. And what we're trying to do is have these students work on what they enjoy most. So for most of us, that means getting started with data visualization, getting started with studies, and really creating waves with what was previously just interests. So with this research, what we're trying to do is be independent. Of course, we're going to be partnered with a lot of universities, but also look at each individual community, look at each student and see what are they passionate about and what can they learn better, especially in an online format. And then finally, and something I'm most proud of, is the connections. It's been super humbling. I'm super proud just to see how all of these people, like of the hundreds of people that I've gotten to know over the last few weeks and months, I've met like maybe 2 before the pandemic started. And that's like my whole driver. I love to be able to provide all these things to people I would have never met if it weren't for this tragedy, and really to provide a silver lining, some light into these people's lives of an opportunity where they're really passionate about it. So speaking of this opportunity, we have 7 different initiatives, starting with the coronavirus visualization team, which has started actually pretty late in April 10th. So what we're trying to do with each of these is, I'll briefly go into them, is provide, again, a space where people can work on a lot of their ideas and bring it out to the public. So for example, the coronavirus visualization team, we have over 30 different projects where students collaborate on looking at data sources, so generally working with our many, many partners, and then trying to put them in an as objective and meaningful visualization as possible that we can then put on our social media, provide to our partners, and in general, help students educate themselves and their communities. The visualization community was a natural response to the team. In this case, open to anybody, talk about how can we learn better? And in that, we've been having basically daily webinars, so seminars, presentations, talks about the cutting edge tools being used by people in the field. Then Hack for the People, Panel to the People, and Policy for the People are, as mentioned, for the people. So it's us providing an event. So in this case, a hackathon, in this case, a policython, where anybody can join in and contribute their thoughts and create something that can be actually used and created by hopefully millions of people. For Panel to the People, we've been having weekly webinars, and the point there is, of course, to connect all of these people who are doing and having conversations worth having with, of course, not just students, but again, everyone online. Before when we were collaborating in the university, you can measure distance by miles, but now every single person is just as close as each other because of course, all of these tools that we have. And with that in mind, we decided to put together Intercollegiate Discord and an educational nonprofit coalition, both of them providing tons of resources to anybody who is willing to check them out, and also a place to talk about them. We have a ton of partners. Go check out our website. I'll provide a link in a second. I've also shared the Canva link so you can follow along and go back. And as you can see, most of us come from a lot of university backgrounds, but we're trying to get more community partners. So if you're interested, give me an email. In terms of what we've done so far, we have over 1,000 active members. So we actually have thousands of members across all our initiatives, but this means people who are logging in more than like 20 days a month, and then actually contributing to all these conversations. Some of our projects actually have a huge real-world impact. For example, Supply Crate has coordinated donation of over 350,000 articles of PPE. We also, of course, focus on research. So we've had a summer research experiences for undergraduates program where we connected over 30 students with Harvard departments. And we've created visualization to help inform a lot of our partners. For example, the COVID Foundation, where they helped coordinate over $600,000 in PPE donations based on all of the analyses that we've made. In terms of how we use the funding, since we're really a clearinghouse of clearinghouses, what we're trying to do is support a lot of low-income students that cannot do this work without some sort of support. So far, all these thousands of man-hours have been spent for free because just the students are that passionate. And we will continue to do it for free, but just a little amount of money will help us help ourselves and allow us to provide and go to the next level for all these students that are, again, super passionate about everything. So in specific for the Pandemic Policy-a-thon, what we're trying to do is have winning teams engage with community partners, not just when the hackathon ends, but going forward so that they can continue to provide these policy-based solutions. Similarly, with our research assistants, what we're trying to do is create a nice, wholesome platform where really anybody can provide their feedback to anybody else based on their research. And this all centers around, of course, our value of not just, being a student thing, not just giving positions to people, but actually having real world impact. And similar to Impact Labs, what we're trying to do is, again, be another layer of abstraction where we can do all the fussy stuff. We can be the bureaucracy and instead let the students focus on doing what they like to do best. So this is our board of directors, as you can see, mostly students. And of course, we're trying to expand that direction. And also, of course, bring more people into conversation. So if you're interested, you can learn more at either of these links. Thanks again for listening, and any questions?
Awesome. You called Impact Labs a layer of abstraction and a bureaucracy. So
no,
you're just qualified. Yeah, no, I'm kidding. It was a great presentation. I think this is a fabulous initiative. I have a question. If you do have questions, please add them in the chat. My question is, how do you intend to reach these partners? How do you intend to scale this? And also a second follow-up question in terms of what you said about the funding. If it is meant to be this passion, like labor of love, then sometimes providing money and as an incentive can actually sully or cheapen those feelings. And in fact, it could denigrate the feeling, the good vibes that you're trying to promote. How would you possibly address those?
Yeah, so in terms of scaling, within the first week, we already got over 300 applications within a day. So really, all this time so far has been spent on correlating what we have. So we've been really surprised, especially in the beginning, of how responsive organizations were. Normally, if I email them, maybe I get a response in months if it wasn't in the pandemic. But because all this time was opened up, literally every professor we were contacting, each organization, they responded within the day, and it was really amazing. So obviously that's going to be less so in coming days, but because now we have the bandwidth to pursue all of these partnerships, so far we currently still have too much to deal with. So in terms of scaling, what we want to do is, of course, expand it to not just within our hubs, so not just at top universities, but across colleges and intercollegiate. And then in terms of keeping the spark, so not denigrating work. So far, we think we want to just support the students that cannot do this work if they weren't supported. So providing first-generation, low-income, diverse students who might be in difficult home situations right now. For example, everything right now is being self-funded, and I'm a student on full financial aid. So right now, it's really not that much money that's going into this stuff.
Wow. Okay, that's impressive. Got to start small. Wow, this is really amazing. And then for those who are wondering, why you, Lucas? Why you? Like, why should we put our faith in you? Why should we vote for you to win? Like, what do you think makes you uniquely qualified for this particular project?
I think it's not me. It's really just this organization that I think as students, we're uniquely cognizant of how, I guess, incompetent we are, but also how competent are, so that we can reach out to the experts, reach out to the people who know what's up, and then we can pour in all this energy and enthusiasm. So in a sense, I don't think you should think about like investing in me, but rather the organization, what we stand for, because this is something that we want to replicate. Like I was saying, there's not that many organizations that do sort of what we're doing right now. And we want to create a model where it can, create the best impact, of course, that it can.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you so much, Lucas. And we're going to move on to our next presenter. Ryan, want to come on up? Let's bring you to the
Hello,
stage.
everyone. Truly, it is an honor to be a part of this, and I appreciate it. And yeah, so my name is Ryan Sosha. I'm the founder and CEO of Jado, and we are a public benefit corporation on a mission to eradicate sexual assault and provide safe haven to survivors. At Jado, we fundamentally believe in a world that's habitable for all survivors. We believe in a world where, we believe that sexual misconduct is truly solvable, especially at scale through technology. Jado is built by survivors for survivors and is available for free worldwide on iOS and Android devices. And we are designed specifically to spearhead the most underreported crimes in the world and to give survivors complete control over their narratives and their pursuit of justice. Jado is an anonymous platform for reporting sexual misconduct, and we empower survivors and witnesses to use our encrypted crime reporting platform to report sexual violence and to stop repeat offenders. By connecting survivors to pursue justice together against repeat offenders, we can generate a tremendous amount of both emotional and practical strength. Reports on our system neither defame perpetrators, even though you name them by name, social media, phone number, etc., nor could the reports even be subpoenaed from our platform to reveal the identifying information of the reporting party. Fundamentally, this levels the playing field for survivors who otherwise might not even report due to fear of retaliation or social blaming, and creates access to justice for some of the most marginalized communities globally. The future applications of our technology are incredibly vast, ranging from leveraging our encryption architecture for secure contact tracing to reporting of police misconduct, to leveraging artificial intelligence to connect even more dots for survivors and to catalyze legal success. We're already a sustainable venture, and we have a long road ahead, and this prize money will essentially help to cover the entire cost of developing Jado for web and make it even more accessible around the world for tens of thousands of survivors we intend to reach this year. One really interesting example of the application of Jado recently was at Trinity College in Connecticut. We went from 0 reports on the campus to over 75 and identified over a dozen repeat offenders within a period of a week. In doing so, we got to come to the university and say, hey, we want you to no longer mishandle these types of claims anymore. We want you to have access to our system in a survivor-centric way. We can add your school and your Title IX office as an endpoint for where these reports can be shared. And in doing so, survivors can share the reports with the school. The school can have an easier capacity to see repeat offenders and bad actors within the campus community and to get rid of them. But in addition, we create accountability, transparency, and restore trust within the school itself. Because ultimately, if the school doesn't handle these claims properly anymore, and they get them shared from us to their Title IX office, the reports can just as easily be shared with some of the most feared law firms in the world. So there's an incredible amount of leverage that we're able to create on behalf of survivors to help create accountability at institutions, not just in the US, but around the world. This is also applicable to corporate HR, rideshare, dating apps, and more, where we can help these entities increase reporting rates and help them to do so in a survivor-centric way. It's not just about addressing these things internally for these organizations anymore. It's about doing so and doing the right thing, holding perpetrators accountable, and doing justice by survivors. So that's all I had. And as you can see, we have, a graphic that kind of covers, some of the high level details of our app. And yeah, happy to answer any questions that might have come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. I had a question. Have you heard of Project Callisto? I'm going to link it in the chat here.
Yeah. And
how are you guys different?
Yeah, so Callisto charges schools about $50,000 a year. The CEO is also,
way.
yeah, and the CEO is actually also on a 12-month sabbatical. So we are actually giving Jado to schools for free to put optimal pressure on these institutions to adopt this type of technology. Also, states such as Pennsylvania have made it law for all post-secondary educational entities to provide a non-misreporting technology to their faculty and students. So we're different in that we solely focused on the legal aspect from the beginning and are now starting to branch out into everything else. And really, there's a lot of paradoxical conflict of interest, whether you go to the police with these reports or Title IX department or corporate HR. And really, there's just not a lot of alignment. There's always these conflicts of interest, but law firms are really interesting because they have the fiscal and ethical incentive to ruthlessly represent survivors. So it's really good to go to them first and to use that as sort of a buffer to make sure that police then handle these things properly or that corporate HR is handling these things properly. So yeah, slightly different entities, but yeah, we offer our tech to schools for free.
Sounds good. We have a question from Angelica. How would your app interface between survivors and the school's Title IX office while protecting survivors' anonymity?
Yeah, it's a great question. And essentially, reports on our system are owned and controlled by survivors at all times. So if we provide the Title IX office as an option as to where these reports can be shared, it's totally up to them if they want to share those reports. But we could still show the school like, hey, this is the pure number of reports filed on your campus. Here's how many repeat offenders have been identified. And if folks want to share those reports with the school, they can, and then the school can decrypt them fully and be able to access that information. From a law firm perspective, I imagine that the school stuff will be very similar to how law firms access it. And before a law firm even reviews formally one of these inbound reports, they're able to see high-level details about the report, i.e. the perpetrator's information and the entity affiliated, to make sure that they don't actually have a conflict of interest before they get access to the survivor information. So I imagine that it'll be kind of a similar system such as what we have with law firms for Title IX offices. That makes sense.
Okay. A question from Afnan. Love the idea. Woo. What would happen normally with these reports if someone in the general public reports their abuser, not in university or offices? Or are you specifically used in those contexts exclusively?
It's a great question, and we're available everywhere in the world for all of these types of crimes under the vast umbrella of sexual misconduct. So if you filed a report now in our system, the moment you file it, and for as long as it's sitting on our system, we'll notify you if the perpetrator is a repeat offender and enable the coordination of legal action if that's of interest to you. You could either pursue legal individually, or you could wait until that perpetrator is identified as a repeat offender, and we can help coordinate legal action with the same firm or with multiple firms. We also, as of Monday, we're adding about 1,000 different resources that are non-legal resources for survivors all around the country. And eventually, the world, we're live in 170 different countries. But this is really, mental health resources, rape crisis centers, maybe Planned Parenthood locations as well. So yeah, it's available for all contexts of sexual misconduct, whether you're in a university context or anywhere really, and it's for free. So ultimately, the goal is to reduce the downside of filing a report. And in doing so, we actually have an exponential capacity to identify repeat offenders. So that's, the power of this tech.
Fabulous. Okay. And then Ryan, how did you come to be involved with this?
Yeah, so I actually had an experience back in going to my senior year of high school where I worked in a firm in this space. I actually had a close friend of mine come to me after working out at a CrossFit gym, told me about an experience, he just had. And within 24 hours, I had helped my friend and identified over 10 individuals who had the same experience with the same guy. So from a really early stage, back in 2012 sort of time frame, I understood the value of how realizing that you're not alone totally flips the narrative and really leads to collective action or unanimous action against the perpetrator. So I saw the value from the survivor end. I also understood the value from the law firm perspective. I'm also a survivor myself, and ultimately just was really pissed off, quite frankly, that I'd been dispositioned from the legal perspective, working on these types of cases. I was literally able to apply what I learned in that context to my friends' lives and to help them with this type of situation. And I was just really pissed off because I felt like I'd been dispositioned through all of these means to ultimately classify myself as a survivor, but I had failed to recognize that personally. And ultimately, I, was like, well, if it's this difficult for me, like, what about everyone else? And, I just started digging into the research and figuring out that, if like these crimes are truly solvable, and it's all about, the reported 1 in 10 times, if you can increase reporting rates, you could identify repeat offenders so much better because the vast majority of perps are repeat offenders and known by name to the survivor. So it was really all of this, kind of intersection and experience between law, technology, and my personal experience, and eventually met with a venture capitalist in San Diego, told him about all of this, and he was just like, I believe in you, I believe in this company, when can you start? And that was literally all I needed to hear to just start going full throttle with this. So yeah, it's been a while. Probably started working on this in 2013, and it's taken us a long time to get where we are today. So.
Sure. We have one last question, which is, what are your thoughts on trolling? I can imagine false spam reports from people not taking the app seriously. I'll add a flip side to that, which is, how are you considering cybersecurity? I imagine that the database that you're compiling could be a huge honeypot for attackers. So how serious?
Yeah. This is a great question. The default response to false reports is that these crimes are not falsely reported at even relevant rates compared to other types of crimes. But at the end of the day, we're not a decision maker. We're just a dot connector. So even if people are filing reports, a law firm will never end up taking on claims that they, don't think are viable in court and don't think, are true. So they're the ones who ultimately vet them the same way they would any other types of claims. Also, proceeding the legal direction with a false claim is illegal, and people could face consequences for that. In terms of the database and security and all of that, so we actually store all of our users' private keys locally on their devices. Like, we as a company couldn't even access the data, which is why we say it's not subpoenable. It's not that it couldn't be subpoenaed, it's just that if it were, the data that they get would never be decryptable. Like, we use end-to-end encryption and homomorphic encryption. And essentially, even if our databases were hacked, the data is safe. And it could only be, like, for example, if you had a report on our system, your identity could only ever be revealed if someone took your physical phone, extracted the keys from local storage, like downloaded our entire database and was able to hack into that. But in the future, as quantum computing increases and, makes all of encryption essentially breakable, we're also, looking.
Yeah, that's a hot take. All right.
Yeah. Well, we're also looking to quantum proof our encryption. So that's sort of like the next level of making sure that this is truly robust, even beyond what the technical capacities are today.
Wow. Okay. The fact that you just said you're looking to quantum proof it, that shows that you are taking this seriously, and please do, because this is an amazing project, and I wish you well.
Thank you. Worst case scenario is for this data to be leaked. So it has to be that way, Right.
That's exactly right. Glad you're taking it seriously. And now I'm going to kick you off and welcome our next presenter, Byron. Hello, Priscilla. Welcome. And I'm going to add your screen to the presentation. Great. You can click present and then take it away.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Priscilla Guo, and I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Algorite, and I'm really excited to be sharing with you all the solution we've been working on to audit fairness, accountability, transparency, and accountability back into algorithms. So why don't we dive in and start talking about the problem that we're looking at? So in the United States and around the world, we're having a national awakening to the systemic injustices that are deeply encoded into our everyday lives. Algorithms are being used in a variety of different industries and decision-making contexts, but have been known to produce biased outcomes. And we see this with hiring, with Amazon's recruiting algorithm penalizing resumes that include the term women's in it, or in criminal justice, where Black defendants are more likely than white defendants to be given higher risk scores for committing a crime again. And we also see it in credit lending, where there's rampant discrimination against borrowers of color. So these biased algorithms have prompted us to think about how we can start checking these systems where we don't resign to the black box of algorithms. We've observed that there are regulatory mandates that are emerging for explainability in algorithms in the US and EU, and soon it will develop into a global standard. But the problem is that companies are not equipped with the tools to build fairness, accountability, and transparency into their algorithms and meet regulatory demand. So we're building Algorite, and Algorite is a holistic algorithmic audit built by biased researchers and underrepresented perspectives. And Algorite is really there to serve as that external check to meet regulatory demands for enterprises in building algorithmic explainability. We see our value set as having an interdisciplinary approach. We're utilizing ethical frameworks, quantitative and qualitative methodologies to test for bias. And each of our analyses are really contextualized to the industry in which it's being applied. We're offering our clients a SaaS platform that allows them to easily use it and flexibly tailor their data sets and requirements to the audit that we're providing. And in terms of the market size for algorithmic tech, we see two huge advantages. First, that there's a great addressable market of $35 billion today, but even beyond that, the annual growth rate of algorithmic tech is looking at 55% a year. So truly, this is an emerging market, this is a big market, and the competitors are few and far between. All are new, either emerging this year or last, and all either provide too hyper-localized a solution to be broadly generalizable or too broad to be applicable. So some of the competitive advantages that we've identified with the solution that we're providing are founder advantage. Not a lot of people can solve the problem that we're proposing to solve. We have a multidisciplinary and technical team with the skills and the desires and the interest to tackle this algorithmic bias problem. We're in a growing market, as I had mentioned, with the 55% annual growth rate and no dominant player. There's really a market opportunity. Moreover, as more and more algorithms are being used to make decisions, more and more people are more vulnerable to algorithmic discrimination. We propose that the holistic product that we're advertising is truly superior in that it capitalizes on the interdisciplinary nature of the problem. The focus of our solution is not so much risk management, rather fairness, accountability, and transparency. So we're not looking at it from a traditional insurance perspective, but auditing truly for the people. And moreover, what's unique to our industry of auditing is that there's this monopoly trust angle, where as Algorite grows and gains recognition and trust, the company will only get stronger. We're seeking to use the funding that we get from the Impact Lab Summit today to really capitalize on providing the technical resources we need to do the bias test. So this includes AWS resources or pipeline software to really start looking at these tests and have the tech to back it up. So a little bit about our team. I'm really grateful to have such an incredible team working together with me on trying to solve this problem. We all really met through the fairness and bias research communities, and each of us has very unique add-ons to the team itself. For example, the more technical side between Ani and our head of research, Hannah. And we also have the business perspective with a growth strategy from Linda, who's brought in millions of dollars for Facebook and other nonprofits. And in general, also just a legal and regulatory mindset that I bring to the team. But overall, what I would say is one of our biggest benefits and what makes us really unique is that we're all very driven to solve this problem because all four of us are directly affected by it. We wake up every day super motivated to solve this problem because it deeply affects not only us, but the communities that we're a part of. So I just want to thank you all for listening to our presentation. And if you're interested in learning more about us and following our journey, you can go and visit our tagline at Algorite AI. Thanks.
Fabulous. That was really amazing. This is a super, super cool product, and I'm really excited for you to continue developing it. As, of course, open it up for a chat. If anyone has questions, you should hop in on the YouTubes. I have a question, which is, aren't like the companies that build these algorithms like super proprietary about it and like extremely covetous and like they don't let anyone in and like poke around and make sure that they're like how like they keep it so close to the vest? Like, how are you going to be working with companies that are extremely proprietary and secretive?
Well, the truth of the situation is that when you think about these algorithms, we think about the big players, we think about Facebook and Google and Microsoft, but as you can see from the market, it's not just those big.
Oh my God, I just kicked out Priscilla. I'm so sorry, Priscilla, and I'm so sorry. Priscilla, if you're watching this, please come back in. Priscilla, I'm so sorry. I just need you. I eventually can move the screen, but I just totally join back in, Priscilla. Okay.
Hi, I'm sorry.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. Please.
The streamer just logged me out. Tech issues as we'll have in this modern era. So with your question was about how will these companies really be letting us look into these proprietary software? So what we've noticed actually is the problem is really simplistic for some of the users we're talking to. So we've been talking to a lot of educational institutions, and you'd be surprised what they categorize as an algorithm and what they're doing behind the scenes. So it's as simple as them with an Excel spreadsheet, score ranking everyone and saying, let's take the top 50 applicants based off of the score that we've now just, plugged into the system. So I think straying away from the idea that this is too big of a problem to solve where there's this black box and no one gets to look into it. I know from the research perspective, we're told that we can only really test the inputs and the outputs, but we think that in forming this partnership with companies, they're really only going to want to buy into our product to tell the world, hey, we are trying to solve for this as well in our system. We're committing to that promise of trying to reconcile our systemic injustices, and we're going to be building the tool into our system now.
Fabulous. Another question we had is in terms of reducing algorithmic bias. This has obviously been a very pressing topic for the last 5, 10, really 20 years, but it's only been talked about recently. A lot of folks say that it's really extremely difficult to address this problem without more diverse data sets. They kick the can. It's not the algorithm's fault. It's garbage in, garbage out. If we don't have diverse data sets with inclusive faces for facial recognitions and things like that, then we're not going to be able to properly tweak these parameters and things. So how do you address issues like, can this be solved? And do you think so? And if so, how?
So again, from my background of criminal justice, I completely hear the diverse data sets issue. Actually, a lot of the algorithms that are trained are actually trained more on the arrest data than it is on the conviction data. And from there, you can already see that there would be huge racial differences that manifest between the two data sets. So being able to have that historical background for all of us being accustomed to the context and the industries that are being examined, I think that we'll be able to analyze whether it is a data set issue. If it is a data set issue, then trying to solve for demographic data is definitely going to be a problem that we're contextualizing to not only industry, but jurisdiction. What's considered a protective class data in the US is very different from what it is in the UK. So these are problems that we're still in the process of solving.
Nice. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. We have a question here from Valerie. I think you mentioned that ethical frameworks are part of your bias tests. In philosophy type ethics, it is debatable what ethical framework is right in the first place. How do you make a robust test for ethics? Yeah, is it like a pure utilitarian framework? Are you bringing in some Aristotle and sprinkling in some Kant? Like, what is your philosophy behind this, and how do you evaluate what's ethical?
So I think that there are different questions for different industries. So there is no right question for, if you ask me today, what is fairness? I would say it depends on which customer I'm talking to that day. Specifically because different clients in different industries are trying to optimize for whether it be process or outcomes. And it sounds like the person who's asking this question is very well aware that, there's just this wide range of philosophies that are out there. But trying to imbue a more ethical mindset in developing this technology is one push that I think we could make a change in. Like for a lot of us in talking to the companies we've worked with in the past, it never comes across their desk as, should we take a step back and do an ethical review? So that's sort of where the ethical frameworks comes in.
Okay, fabulous. We have one last question, also from Valerie. Curious if you have any specific examples of products that were changed using your bias testing so far.
So right now we're actually in our MVP stage. So we're a very early stage company, but we're testing with a bunch of different customers in the education space right now. So unfortunately, we don't have any specific examples. However, you can look at a lot of the research that we've already done separately and individually. And now that we've come together, I only think that Brain Hive can produce a truly magnificent solution in the industry section.
Nice. I hope you're right. Continue working on this. This is a fabulous product needed now more than ever. I'm going to kick you out for real this time, and I'm going to bring on Elliot. Bye, Priscilla.
Hi.
And hello, Elliot. Welcome,
Hey,
welcome.
how you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing fine. Thanks a lot. You know, that's wow. Bonus points for you. You asked the moderator how he's doing. Everyone vote for him. Just kidding. I'm going to leave now. And
Hi, everybody. I believe I can start presenting now. My company, Spira, is a algae company. We create replacements for petroleum and animal compounds for food, cosmetics, and textile companies.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. You're a little hard to hear. Maybe you could pull up your microphone a little closer to your mouth, if you don't mind.
All right. How does this sound?
Much better. Thanks.
All right, I'll do this now. So my company, Spira, creates replacements for petroleum and animal compounds, petroleum-based colors in the supply chain for food, cosmetic, and textile companies. And we do that using CRISPR-edited algae. And so I have some of it right here. You can see our first product, Electric Sky. It is this amazing blue colorant, and this is entirely produced with carbon-negative algae. And it's edible, too. And it doesn't taste like anything at all. So when you walk around and after it rains, you see this rainbow shimmer on top of the asphalt, or that iridescent shine in your gasoline. That rainbow of colors is what is going into our food products. It's what's going into the clothes that we wear, what dyes the clothes we wear, and the cosmetics that we put on our face. That oil is leftover oil gunk that has been used as colorants in practically any color that you can think of nowadays. And what that means is that every time you eat an artificial color, you're basically licking pavement. So I'm Elliot. I have a background in experience in synthetic biology, and I come to you with a number of years of experience in working with algae. What we discovered is that artificial colors that are made from petroleum are in practically everything, ranging from blue Gatorade to jeans. What this has done to particularly food companies is that they've found out that there's these artificial colorants in the supply chain, and they're trying to phase them out. And so the opportunity is pretty massive, from food to cosmetics to textiles. This is a $16 billion market opportunity. And in particular, the food industry recognizes this as a particular problem. And they've made an agreement to phase out all artificial colors by 2022. And so these companies are looking around in nature, and they see orange from carrots and red from beets, but really there's no blue foods. And there was a quote from George Carlin where he says, "Why is there no blue foods?" There's really no option out there for blue until now. So my company, Spira, creates this natural blue colorant that I showed you on screen from spirulina blue algae. So don't take it from us how amazing it is. You can hear it from one of our customers. Our customer, Raw Juicery, added Electric Sky, this amazing blue colorant to their mermaid lemonade, and it's their #1 seller. They were able to cut the amount of colorant usage by 20%, thus increasing their overall margin, and didn't have to change up their production process at all. So our main objective is to replace all of these petroleum colors with natural, beautiful, carbon-negative algae colors. And we have a couple of advantages to existing colorants. Not only is it a color match, but we're working on technology that enables us to use it in really caustic cosmetic conditions, as well as dyes for clothing products. And so we've drummed up a lot of interest from clients ranging from food, cosmetic, textiles, paints, pigments, things like that. And we've really built up this massive pipeline in terms of demand. We have over 1,000 customers that we've talked to and centered it down to about 14 active pilots and over 65 letters of intent that we've signed. What that means is that we've built up about $33.6 million in projected demand. But because we're a small startup, just 4 people, we really can't fulfill all of that demand just due to lack of capital on hand. And the way that we actually supply all these companies with that beautiful blue color is we work with farmers in developing countries. So we actually use the capital that we raise and money that we make as a means of paying these farmers to farm algae, something that they've been doing for hundreds of years in large outdoor open ponds. This means that we have virtually no capital investment and minimal operational investment. The farmers then farm these particular algae strains and then send it back to us in Los Angeles, where we process it into higher value ingredients. What this means is that every dollar put into Spira employs farmers, captures CO2 through growing algae in these large outdoor ponds, sucking down CO2 from the environment, and displaces petroleum and animal compounds from the supply chain for 65 or more companies now. And so the way that our business works is we work predominantly on the research and development. We create the specific seed culture that is then passed along to the farmers. Farmers farm it on our behalf and then send us back dried powdered algae, which is this dark blue-green powder, which we then separate into proteins and beautiful colors. The team that's making that happen is myself. I have a background in synthetic biology. I've been doing it since I was 14 when I started tinkering with DNA. My chief scientist comes to us with a 15-plus year experience in algae biotechnology. My COO, he and I have been working together for 8 years, starting various businesses. He's done contract work for NASA. And then Amanda Pressgraves, who's our director of business development, who comes to us with stints in the food industry and with IDEO. So in terms of voting for us, the funding given in this competition would directly go to pay farmers for their work in farming algae. Every bit that we grow absorbs CO2 from the environment and replaces petroleum-based colors from the supply chain. So if you're interested in getting in touch or learning more, we're just getting started because we have other colors in the pipeline. We have other potential ingredients that we can produce from this carbon negative algae. And I'm really excited for you to join in on the journey. Thank you.
Woo, fabulous. Virtual round of applause. Of course, if you have questions, please ask them on YouTube. This is really fascinating. When I saw the application, when the team and I, when we were reviewing applications, we were like, this has nothing to do with computer science and software, but we love it. Let's put it in the chat anyway. And I did want to ask though, like, what are there software components of this? Like what and how, perhaps, like, what are some lessons that you've learned, like working out as a synthetic biologist, that like might be applicable to the computer scientists who are watching this?
Well, something that's really wild is how far behind biology is from computer science. So when you think about like the 1970s, that's about where we are in terms of biology. So anything that we can use in computer science to aid us in our work, we try to use. So for example, a lot of the software that we end up using is as a means of making our colors improved, figuring out different regions of DNA and having DNA be like the software of life, figure out different parts of the DNA that we can slightly tweak using CRISPR as a means of making our colors that much more usable, functional, and easier to manage for the clients that we have. And so we use software to identify the parts of DNA that we can actually go and change, and then verify that we've actually changed those.
Nice. Yeah, it's a huge data science challenge. Marielle just wanted to say that the founder eats the product and then pitches with a blue mouth. That's commitment. I noticed that too. You were glowing, in the very beginning. So we have a question from Larissa. Are these artificial ponds or natural ponds when you're growing these algae? If it's the former, how do you make sure that people aren't deforesting or doing other negative land use practices in order to make the pond?
Great question. Yeah, so a couple of different aspects of that. We only use artificial ponds, and these are in non-arable lands, desert regions of the globe, or areas in which you can't really farm anything else. These are like small little trenches that are dug out of the landscape and filled with water. Basically, the only water input you need is what you start with. And so over time, what this means is that the farmers can consistently pull off really high value products, high value algae, protein, edible compounds, and we tend to grow in covered greenhouses. And so when my team goes and checks out the different farming partners, we go through a full audit, make sure they're adhering to USDA, EPA, and FDA standards, and then take it through a third-party laboratory test to make sure that it's clear in terms of health and safety.
Okay, fabulous. That's it. That's all we have time for. I'm going to kick you off, and I'm going to bring on Salman. Thank you so much, Elliot. This has been a tremendous joy, and we'll see you in a bit. Salman, I'm adding you to the stream. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in. I'm going to add your presentation to the screen, and I am going to remove myself. Take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. Hi everyone, I'm Salman Makbul and I'm from Islamabad, Pakistan. So listed are also my collaborators. Ziki, she's a medical student at Cambridge, and she's also a co-founder with me for At-psychedelic. And also some of my friends like Bilal and Ahmed, they have helped me, so I wanted to acknowledge them here as well. Cool. So last year I went through a pretty bad phase of depression and anxiety, and I was like, it was like I had lost like all will. I was sleeping 16 hours a day or even more, like sometimes 20. I just couldn't work. I had a PhD position that I had applied for a couple of months ago, and I was so depressed that I had to decline it, even though it was like exactly in the field that I was working in. But eventually, like I started therapy, started taking some medicines, and saw a doctor. And with time, like it took time, but hopefully, thankfully, I got better. So, but I wanted to like translate those what I learned on the way to the general public, especially like in low and middle income countries where the resources are for mental health are kind of limited. So, some of the main points from insights from my community. So if there were some, okay, I think, yeah, I disconnected for a moment. Sorry about that.
You're fine, keep going.
So like having a sense of community and self-awareness helped. And basically that's the kind of, and I read a bit more into it, like I read a bit more into my own condition as well, like, and about mental health in general, even though like I don't really come from that background, but community and having like a great support system really helps people. And like there's a lot of evidence behind that as well. And I kind of like wanted to do something because like existing solutions for mental health don't really incorporate that, especially digital ones. So I wanted to work on something like that. Anyway, yeah, so I wanted to share some like data across the world in low middle income and high income countries. So there's like a high prevalence of mental health disorders and substance use disorders in high income countries, but it's also like the figures are kind of not like there's range in they lie in the range of between 10 and 20%, like 13 to actually it's 13 to 18%. So, and considering like the most of the 85% of the world's population live in low and middle income countries, so there are a lot more people who suffer from that, but they do not have as much resources like the mental health workforce, and the government expenditure per person is much lower in low and middle income countries as compared to high income countries. Even worse, like I guess these are like some of my personal estimates. I can share the source for that, and these are not accurate. These are they can kind of just show a trend of how the treatment, how different like mental health conditions are treated. What's the prevalence of treatment versus like the presence of the different disorders in different countries. So as I said, these are like just for trend. These are not accurate figures. These are a bit more accurate, like they come from a study from the Lancet 2007. This is the study that's been quoted like by all the works even till 2020. Like the most recent report from World Health Organization was also showed that. Anyway, like we can see the discrepancy like in low and middle income countries and with high income countries. So anyway, yeah. So I want to like propose a hierarchical mental health care solution where you have different levels of care associated with the severity of the help or the kind of need you need. So for example, like starting with level 0, you can have a chatbot assisted therapy. So and then you can have a self-help course or a computerized version of cognitive behavioral therapy, which has really good evidence of improving mental health outcomes. And the unique point here is that we want to like deliver the self-help course of CBT in a group setting. So the group could be like n equals to 2 with like it's just a peer setting, but it's like guided by a trained volunteer. The upper levels are, for example, that based for more severe cases, you can have sessions with a mental health professional through the platform. And in worst cases, I'll just, okay. Yeah, in worst cases, like you can be referred to I'm sorry because like I can't make this disappear, the bar below, but so it says that referral to crisis services. So you could be referred to someone outside the platform or to crisis services depending on the severity. So this kind of provides a safety net for each hierarchical level, provides a safety net like where you can like depending on the severity of the case. For example, at level 0, we can determine like, okay, what kind of with AI and some automation, we can kind of determine like what kind of help the user might need, and kind of refer them to the relevant level of treatment there. And the ones shown in purple are actually what we are targeting for the MVP, because I think these are the most these can have already have like start having an impact, but at the lowest possible cost, I guess. So yeah, these are the user journey, but I think like I'm kind of running out of time, so I'll skip this. But yeah, this is the important part, I guess. So there's like a course which is delivered through a certain time period, maybe a couple of weeks, or a couple of sessions. I think it depends on the audience preference. So there are different modules that you can take as part of a group, and which are facilitated by a mentor. A mentor is a volunteer or a therapist, which is who is always available. Not always available, but like you can contact the mentor about personal problems as well, and they are trained to handle that. They are trained to deliver CBT, and there are some take-home activities as well. And then we monitor the progress at different levels through self-reports. And at the end of the course, you can have you also have evaluation. You get a community that you can interact with, and I guess you can also have like access. You will still have access to those mentors that you already like connected with, and so it's kind of like continuation of treatment in some sense. And I guess like this is kind of a unique selling point for this, because there are already self-help solutions like which deliver digital CBT or digital version of different therapies, but like they do not have a human component. And I guess like with them, at least from my experience, like I tried those out, and I couldn't really like complete them because there was a missing human component, there was a missing community component, and I trying to extrapolate to like from my experience and some other people's experience to see if this will work. And later on, we can scale a lot of things using AI. For example, development of a chatbot for a human-like interface. We can have automated diagnosis. We can have personalized treatment suggestions, treatment monitoring via smartphone data as well, like and check-ins with volunteers and mental health professionals, and also intervention suggestions like kind of preventive monitoring to see like if someone might be relapsing or something like that. These are some value propositions like or unique selling points. So we want to do this as a non-profit. We don't really want to have any external investor, private investment kind of derail this because I mean we want to be really careful about this is mental health is very sensitive, like, and the kind of data that we will have is something that we don't really want to it shouldn't be like influenced by commercial decisions. So something like that. And we're also like taking privacy and data protection as a first principle and building like that. Our eventual goal is that I think this is something very similar to what Ryan mentioned as well, but in a different way. So there's federated learning, for example, where the data never leaves a smartphone at all. It doesn't need to like come to a server. Instead, like for example, a machine learning model can be transferred from a server to a user's smartphone or a browser, and they can the model can be fetched back after training. And it's a human in the loop system. We are trying to use evidence-based treatments because CBT and the community component are research evidence, and they have been validated through randomized controlled trials in a lot of experiments. And it's something that we will actually iterate over and see based on user need, and also as new evidence comes up. In any machine learning system is at least at these stages is especially for mental health care and healthcare in general is not really not going to be ideal. Like I think it was covered in one of the presentations before as well. So we are planning to have it as a human in the loop system. We want to develop it as an open source product, and so that like if anyone else wants to use our product as well to build another healthcare solution, they are more than welcome to. And also like we want to do open science and research, publish all our work that we do. It's a platform to conduct digital randomized controlled trials, as well as a platform to conduct behavioral research. And we want to like have the users have complete control of their data. They can choose to share for research purposes any data that they would like to, and they are encouraged to. But still, it's we don't want their data unless they don't want to like share it with us. So funding savings are sources are so currently like we have been working with our own savings. We are hoping to get some from the social startup competition to kind of basically pilot test our MVP and like hire some developers and conduct a mini study among a small group to see like what they're. And we also have like some other models in mind that we can use. But anyway, that was it. Thank you so much for listening, and you can contact me. I'll paste these slides on Slack too, so you can just check them out there too later.
Fabulous. We have maybe time for one question. First of all, we love the personal experience. This is really a valuable, such a valuable app, and it could be profoundly impactful in places where mental health resources are really just inaccessible. We do have a question, which was, would users answer a questionnaire to determine which level is right for them?
Yes. So the idea is that they initially like they can answer a questionnaire, and we can. So initially, it's a very human in the loop system. So initially, we have to start with very manual like curation of the data, whatever questions that we get, and based on that, we can kind of place the people in the relevant levels. But as we kind of start getting more data of what kind of questionnaires are filled out and what the responses to the questionnaires are and what the mental health professionals decided okay is appropriate level, we can try and start automating this.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you so much, Salman. This is really an impressive, amazing initiative. I'm going to boot you out, and then we're going to close out because we're just about out of time.
Thank you
so much. Wow, folks, that was just some pretty cool competitors over here. I like to say, and I've said this ever since the beginning, since we've started hosting social startup competition, it's such a misnomer because there are no competitors in the social impact space. These are all fabulous companies that in no way are, stepping on each other's toes. And even if they were all doing the exact same thing, that's like fabulous. We want more socially impactful projects in the world. And so there's no competitors. There are always just collaborators. And so we invite you to take this mindset of like the fixed pie or like scarcity. And it's like, screw that. We're all doing good work, and you're all trying to just, do the best you can and make use of the resources and optimize for the goodness in the world rather than just profit. And so it's just so inspiring to see this type of mentality that, it's not about competition. It's really just about collaboration. And I hate to say this, but we all are all winners. And we actually engineered the prize money to be administered in such a way. So I'm going to be sending a survey out in the Slack right now. And you can take that survey and you can vote on who you think, even, we said it's not a competition, but in the end, there's going to be someone with slightly more votes and slightly less, though everyone will be walking away with some amount of funding because we'll be administering the $10,000 proportionate to the amount of points that each team scores. So you could vote in the chat. I'm going to be posting that in just a second. And that concludes our social startup competition for the Impact Summit 2020. It's been a pleasure to host. Thank you for putting up with our technical difficulties. And honestly, it's so cool that we can have everyone present from all around. Salman was from Pakistan just now. He's from Islamabad. That's so cool. So although, again, it's really kind of sucks that we're not being able to do this together, it's just such a feature that we can really highlight and showcase the ventures and the teams and the projects and the students and the attendees who are coming from all over the world from different time zones. So it's just really fantastic to have you all here. And I'm so proud, and I'm going to remove myself before I start crying. Bye, everyone.